The passion, the energy, the power, the spirit of hardcore.
Welcome, everybody. It's quite unfortunate that we have to meet in these type of circumstances with the Hackers Congress is slowly ending and being the final one. But, times are changing, and as how far it goes, government is now actively attempting to somehow attack privacy project in our space and throw sticks and stones and wrenches in our pathway so that we get blocked and our freedom gets restricted by the day. And this is not just for Bitcoin privacy related things. This is also for other privacy projects like communication or VPN service providers or using cash. Cash is also a big part of privacy. Because, cash is like the ultimate form of private money. It's untrackable. It's very hard to track. You would need like a really complex system built out in supermarkets to track your use of cash, for example, cash registers. But yeah, anyway, so you might be aware or not that what happened in the Bitcoin space a few months ago with the privacy projects with Samurai Wallets and Wasabi. So basically, this was a black swan event for all of us. Because now these projects, which were actively developing privacy tools, freedom tools, and all this stuff, were now shut down. It was a demonetization event for these projects. These projects are basically actively developing these solutions for us because they had a stream of revenue. So now they were completely rock-pulled by the government. So this is what I call as the end of for-profit privacy. It's a bit of a talk about me, just a tiny bit. You might not know who the hell I am. Just some random furry talking here, So I'm Karo Zagorus. I worked previously at Wasabi Wallet and other Bitcoin companies before. And I'm a privacy advocate. I've been coming to Hackers Congress since 2019. I've been an active part of this community for a while. And I'm really a fierce advocate for privacy. So yeah, I'm the guy who brought NoPara here to Hackers Congress in 2021. I'm really proud of the achievement because we managed to help this place through Wasabi to sponsor the place and then cooperate in the future. But sadly, this is all ending now because everything is being shut down as I live through the downfall of the whole privacy space in Bitcoin. So let's just go through this from the beginning. In 2022, in March, Wasabi Wallet announced that they are going to start censoring Bitcoin transactions. This was kind of the beginning. Because before that, what we had to deal with was journalists basically asking questions from government about these type of projects that were like utilizing money transmission in an unclear way that is not governed by anybody, but still somehow fall under these regulations. And Wasabi at the time, ZK Snacks was asked whether or not ZK Snacks should be registered as a money services provider at the Gibraltar Financial Services Commission. And, how the hell do you perform AML KYC on an open source project? That's quite impossible because, everybody can just compile the code and then run a copy of it, and everybody can just, connect to the coordinator, and then, you have very little control over that. That's just literally impossible to perform. So the default answer for the government was, well, not really the government, the GFSC was kind of independent at the time, but for them the answer was, no, we can't. And they disagreed. That was the big sign at the time for Wasabi that they need to leave Gibraltar. And then the whole hacking and the scandal came out on the Financial Times in March, and that's the time when Adam called a big meeting, I would say instead, we just need to start censoring transactions because the government is now after us. I was just like there, like, holy shit, what's going on here? The world is now unraveling around us, and we might be without a job or without ability to work in privacy for a while. What was going on here? That was just the beginning, because that year, the same year, actually, Peterse was arrested in the Netherlands and was charged with criminal money laundering and something related to maintaining code and not having any control over it. I haven't really fully read what was the indictment there, but it was really complex and went against everything that we know that goes about open source development. And that's really problematic. Later that year, or I think next year or maybe that year, rest of the developers were also arrested. One of them in the United States, and the third one is right now hiding in Russia, I think. Not really hiding, but the US just cannot reach him right now. And that was like the beginning of it. And afterwards, I went to Lugano, and I was forcibly removed from the conference there. And that's how I basically got ended out of Wasabi, got basically kicked out for being a bad optics for the company and for privacy by representing privacy in a consistent fashion. That's how I usually do it. And that was pretty bad for them, because they were really afraid, because now the government is coming after them, and having a privacy advocate who is a bit extremist, but not totally a terrorist, is not a good thing. And they were like claiming I'm going to bring, the SWAT into the office or something like that. So they had to get rid of me basically at that point. And then at the point I was like, this is just a big backstab at the point, and I just had to move on. And I didn't think like it's going to be the end of it, because I always knew when I was working at Wasabi that this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of something more worse. 2 years later, I watched the news, and what do I see? Samurai Wallet and Samurai that were arrested, indicted by the DOJ, and now being charged with conspiracy to perform criminal money laundering and operating a money services business without a license. Like, holy shit, this is what we've been thinking is going to happen all along. So then came the news that zk-SNACKs is shutting down now quickly because, oh shit, we just lost control of the situation, and but there was more to it. And they shut down, closed up shop, and then 3 months later they were out of business, basically. So let's just look at the accusations, what's going on here. So Tornado Cash was accused that they were performing criminal money laundering and sanctions evasion from the OFAC sanctions list. The other developer received other charges too in the Netherlands, but that was a bit different. This is more related to US charges. But compared to what is going on in the US with Samurai Wallet, it's completely different and much more worse for the Samurais, because for them, conspiracy to perform money laundering is a fact-based charge, so they need to somehow prove that. But the second charge, operating a money services business without a license, now that's a really broad thing. It's not that easy to define what can be a money services business, because in the US law, even the postal service is protected under the law that they cannot be charged with things like money laundering if they accidentally move money from A to B without knowing what it is. So what can we do about it, right? So it doesn't really end there. So let's look at what went on or what's the difference here. I know it's talking about the truth is not a big thing sometimes, because the people who are in the biggest shit usually don't really want to talk about that. But I think it's this is the time to talk about it, because it's just going to get more worse as how time progresses. And I think it's really important for us to talk about it. So the samurai team, basically what happened there was that they were legally operating based on their legal advisor's advice. Everything they put out on the Twitter and other places, their communication was sanctioned by their lawyers. Their operation on the darknet, they had their members go on and post messages and advertising their services. They used their social media liberally. They posted hate messages left and right, trashing people, doxing. Even TW, posted the No Para's address on his profile. And just, not something that same privacy advocates would actually do, right? And truth to be told, the whole thing was built on, and probably going to be disagreeing with me a lot here, they wanted to abuse criminal money that's flowing through their system. Who the hell wouldn't want to do that, right? If you could legally operate a service that is able to somehow profit off of criminals' money movement in a privacy system, like in a coin join, and you would be legally protected under the First Amendment, why the hell wouldn't you do it, right? It was an okay idea at the time for them. But this completely changed because, the government just doesn't think that it should be happening, so it was a bad idea. Compared to this, Tornado Cash was operating much more differently. They had a decentralized solution. They weren't operating their bulletproof server centralized. Their Tornado Cash system was decentralized. Their developers were in different countries, just like with the samurais, but their implementation of following the OFAC sanctions blacklist was very much different. They had an implementation for it that they implemented after Wasabi had to move from Gibraltar over to Seychelles Island. But their implementation was actually wonky because they still got charged with something. So the actions of the developers directly influenced the government's action on the entire group, basically. That's what happened here. And now there's Wasabi, nothing happened to Wasabi so far, so we're kind of lucky, I guess. But I don't know how long, because I heard some things that happened in the past that I'm not entirely sure I'm at liberty to say, but I think it's pretty bad. It kind of indicates that something is brewing. But since Wasabi is a legally registered company, it's a much more different ball to chew, because they were operating totally by the book, by the rules. They were paying their taxes for whatever place they were operating in. And they were following the FinCEN regulation on guidance how to deal with their coordinator. But apparently, the whole thing was for nothing because the whole FinCEN regulation was ever changing, and now the DOJ comes and tells us just not like how it is. The FinCEN guidance is just trash. How are you supposed to operate a company now? If one part of the government says one thing and the other says another, and then you just don't know what to do anymore. That's not how the world should work. That's not how privacy projects should be, hanging a balance to, whether it's able to operate or not. That's just big annoyance. And Wasabi also missed the crucial step of being able to sue the government in Gibraltar, because if they would have been able to sue them, what we could have got is legal clarity on whether or not the government really wants to get rid of us, because then we can gracefully disengage from this situation and try find other pathways forward to work on privacy. Because if we know that the government is actively trying to disrupt our operation and send us into prison, then probably we don't want to go to prison, right? But we still want to work on privacy, so we need to find other alternative ways to see what will actually work. That doesn't, drag the, arm people into our houses or whatever else. So, what is happening here? Okay. So what is like the difference here between the effect here that could result out of this whole calamity here? Since the second charge is saying that they were operating a money services business without a license, it has great implications on everything related to Bitcoin. And not just Bitcoin, but other shitcoins and everything else. So it's kind of like not independent. Everybody should be listening to it. So here, if they get a not guilty charge, everything will return back to normal. We will be able to keep working on privacy projects in the same pace, take profit from our users and continue development on these projects without being impeded by unfair or unjust government regulation that we need to abide by because we're forced to run a company, basically. And then this way, we're just not going to end up in prison, basically, so it's going to be easier, but yeah. The world is not such a nice place, so I'm not as optimistic that this could come around because the US government is hell-bent on punishing us for being free, right? So, what if we're going to get a guilty verdict? Running a Lightning node will likely be also an illegal activity. Because if the whole thing that energy flows through the frying pan into the food from the gas stove can be somehow thought of as a guidance on how to think of regulation and guidance, everybody who runs a Lightning node probably could end up in prison for operating an illegal money services business. VPN operators could also be jailed for allowing Bitcoin transactions to go through their operating servers or their networks. So this is really, really bad. You run a node at home, you could be liable legally. Wallets could also be required now to perform AML and KYC on their users. So if you create open source software that doesn't do these steps, you could go to prison, right? That's how it looks like. That's the world that they want us to believe that we're headed towards, and likely we're headed towards. And this is really bad. This is insanely bad. So here is the timeline of what really went down with Wasabi at the time. I totally not heard this from Adam, so that's the thing. So basically they were advised to shut down. Wasabi was paying a legal firm who were advising them about their operation at the given time. Because the uncertainty was so big at the time that they just didn't know what to do anymore. And that company basically told them to shut down. They terminated their employees. No exit pay was paid for them. They had to work for 3 months, go to conferences. And then, the offices were shut down. That's not really true. They still have a lease, so it's kind of still there. But it's still there. And then, as this ripple effect happened, free coordinators started appearing with, for example, the first one from Krav, who was really brave that he started up a coordinator. He really believed still in this cyberpunk ethos of, having privacy and being free in the world. It matters something to some extent. And, yeah. That's something to say. And then other projects like the guys from Wasabi were upset with how they were treated and what went down and what kind of clarity they could be getting. They decided to start Ginger Wallet. But it's not as successful as Wasabi was because now there's a whole bunch of free coordinators going around. But who knows? Who knows, right? Trezor also shut down its coordinator service in the Trezor suite. But later on, thanks to them, and I'm really grateful for Satoshi Labs for changing their minds, for Slush and for Stick to adhering to, for people's rights to have privacy somehow. They allow now their users to keep using their Trezor suite and the Trezor wallet to coin join with Wasabi over free and paid coordinators also. So people now have the idea that they can, start making coordinators. I had many people actually come to me in the beginning, ask me how do I start one? What do I do? And it's just a bit complicated because there's multiple models for this. The first one is like the paid model. You need to start a company for that. You cannot just start it as a single individual if you're receiving money from this mixing. And this is complex because if you need to start a company, you need to abide by the rules. You need to register. You need to build in some sort of a censorship system into place that will censor unwarranted or unwanted transactions from impeding your right to operate or your existence. Like for example, like you could get shut down if you don't censor transactions. And it's still not a silver bullet. So I mean, Ginger is operating, but who knows for how long. But the positive benefit is that basically when you're paying for a service, you can expect that service to be maintained, potentially, when a company is running it, because they're probably going to employ people who can develop code or, keep maintaining the servers that keep running on these things. But contrary to the free model, you don't have these luxury. Because if the sole user who's running the free model will probably try to hide behind torches, the whole system will be unreliable. It will be unmaintained. They will have to somehow maintain the code through updates of others. And then there is this whole risk that it could be malicious. It could steal your funds or who knows what else is going to happen. It's just riskier. But it's still there, and people take the risk to, give people privacy. This really matters. I mean, if you're in the need to have privacy, these people are sacrificing their own freedom to do something about it. And that's what really matters. I'm not trying to, discourage them from doing it. It just, you just need to know what is going on. And people are not talking about that. And then there's a rogue model, basically. It's a bit silly because if you go with this rogue model, I mean, it's kind of like a darknet style, because you probably are trying to make a profit and you're not entirely honest by how things work. And there's zero assurances of how safe the operation of this system could be. So you're kind of like stuck here. It's like saying that Elliptic wants to run a coordinator. Who raise your hand up if you would be comfortable having Elliptic coin join your funds. Who wants to? Nobody's going to put their hands up, right? Nobody wants to do that. It's just crazy. Why would you trust these people? But although somebody could argue at the same time that Elliptic looking at the blockchain or looking at the outputs of a coin join that they have coordinated is the exact same thing. Because if the code is the exact same that the coordinator is running as what Wasabi was running, it's exactly the same. It's like Wasabi having a chain analysis firm looking at the inputs of their transactions. It's exactly the same model. It's just different mental models for Bitcoiners to believe, what is, because they don't want to accept the reality that this is the same thing that could be happening in a different way. And it's sometimes hard to get through to people. So overall, so far, what we see is that there is a clear preference right now for free coordinators. Obviously, it's total communism now, people. Everybody wants the free stuff, right? Who wants to pay for it, right? It's pointless. It's like Tor. You download it from the Tor project's website and you install it. Why would you want to pay for it? Why? So, other projects, Krup's coordinator is the largest right now, and I really applaud him for taking the initiative. But, taking profit is going to be much more difficult now because everybody has, opened Pandora's box and they can just run a coordinator and deal away with the risks of having a company and having to deal with the government directly. Because now you can just hide away behind some random place and then nothing's going to happen. Not entirely. I mean, it's still risky to run a coordinator. So what you can do if you would go as crazy to say that you want to start a privacy project. Not just a coordinator, don't get me wrong here. This could be anything. This could be a VPN service. This could be a communication service, an encrypted communication service. This could be a file storage service. This could be anything that is privacy related or has a privacy utilization. Without, getting into Gitmo, The first thing is, don't be stupid. This should be like a common sense thing that you people should, somehow behave. Not like, some certain individuals who were unfortunately arrested by the US government. But, their unsavory relationship with the world and other Bitcoiners have certainly not contributed to them pulling the shortest from the government and getting arrested. Because when you have your Teutonic expertise of being an asshole and treating everybody like they're dirt, it's not going to get you any favors and getting you ahead. It's just going to get you into trouble. And as far as we can see, they were publicly brandishing things on their profiles. The government dissected their tweets to the tiniest detail of most incriminating evidence, which should be a common sense to post if you're running a high-scale, high-profile privacy project. It's not the way, people. You're just gonna get stowed away like what's on T-Dev's profile into prison. That's what it is. You need to respect everyone. Even you need to respect your enemies. You need to be able to go with your enemies to a conference, be able to sit down in a bar with some beer and talk to them. You should be able to sit down with people working for chain analysis companies, working for other companies like privacy companies who are rival to you, and they're direct competitors because there's stuff to learn from each other. But of course, being an unrelenting asshole or unrelenting, uncompromising privacy advocate, sometimes might work out, but sometimes don't. And so far, it proves that since nobody is running a Whirlpool coordinator, because obviously Samurai got arrested, Wasabi didn't, maybe, people are more inclined to run that, but I think it's more because they believe that they were right. And that's what really matters. It can be profit or not profit if you run anything, a VPN service or anything like that, or a coordinator. You should then play by the rules if you go for profit, and that's going to be a problem. You might have to register a company if you take profit, and you will have to abide by the rules. So you will probably get eaten by lots of Bitcoiners for blacklisting transactions, but in the end, what really matters, right? So, and the other most important point here is that if you're going to be running a privacy project, don't frequent the darknet. Don't. This is such a basic thing that people should understand that lots of projects that were on the darknet at the time, like darknet mixers and everything, or mixers that didn't have any relationship to the darknet, were all shut down after having a presence on the darknet. So that should probably tell you something, that they indeed watch for this. And they punish you really, really badly if you would actually go onto it. But I'm not saying that you probably shouldn't. It's just a precaution, because when you're running a company that works on something so high profile and really important for society, you should probably take all precautionary steps to not just protect yourself, but protect people around you. And that's I think that should be common sense. Or you get stowed away, basically, so you're into prison again. That's like the common theme here. And privacy projects are have a higher survival rate, I would say, if you remain transparent. You should be radically transparent. You should be transparent with your users, with your employees, with everybody else. The developers should be transparent about the limitations and the positive benefits of anything. A service, a privacy coin-join service, or anything like that. And then You should seek allies. You should go to conferences. You should meet others. And this is really important. You should talk to others in other privacy projects, like the Tor project. Go talk to them. Go to VPN providers and see how they're dealing with government and regulation. Talk to things like the Coin Center, even though they're doing shitcoining. You should probably still talk to them because they're legal eggheads. They know what they're doing to some extent. To some extent, yeah, but not always. So yeah, but there are other tools now available to, somehow go for better privacy, like not entirely better privacy, but I would say it's getting there, but not yet. But at least it's helping to empower African countries and people in underdeveloped countries to somehow gain financial freedom, to be able to access the financial markets and have money that is stable. Although I'm not going to say that probably you should keep lots of money on it or anything, because federations are centralized point of failure. And that's a problem. I asked questions and spoke to them, and I never received a straight answer. What's going to happen if a government just, stops everybody from operating the federation? I mean, that's not an issue. I mean, everything has a limitation, but if you're having to face the tough questions, you should at least talk about the negative consequences more freely, so that others know how we can improve these things, and how we can get ahead, and how we can improve everything in our lives, so that we can finally have Fedimint actually being a good layer solution for Lightning, which I think will be beneficial for every one of us. And then, Samurai got also forked, which is a good thing. So people are developing. And life is just not getting stuck in a loop of not having the right privacy tools. So who knows? I never tried this one out, so you're at your own risk. I heard some bad things about it a few minutes ago. But I want to try it out, so I would give it a try, Even though I kind of hated Samurai Wallet and the dramas they were doing, but, need to give everything a try after, this whole unfortunate situation. So yeah, I hope, I managed to, give you some new perspective of what's going on around and everything else, which is now, privacy is now your responsibility. Completely it is now, always has been. And I want to end here and say that we still need to keep building and keep working on these projects and find ways how to solve this whole mess that we have with government, because we just can't avoid it. Now, it's like saying that we don't want Donald Trump at the Bitcoin conference when he's going to come there, because people want to have more reason to have more adoption or more people to use Bitcoin. So yeah, anyway, I don't want to pull the time anymore. I thank you very much for your attention. That will be all. And I'm going to be taking some questions here. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Let's get them the mic. Put your hand up if I'm able to see you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. This is the time. However difficult it might be. Over there, the gentleman over there. Let's hear it.
Hey, I'm sorry if I missed it. Was there a solution mentioned?
The solution is that there is no solution. We are in the shit right now, you see. We need to wait for these things to grind through the court system in order to get clarity on what's going to be the next step. Because right now, everybody's shitting their pants to, what's going to be the next step we need to make. Because there's now a divergence in path of how privacy can look like in Bitcoin, for example. There is a more legalized route where people can take profit. Then there's a more cypherpunk pathway now that is going to be entirely illegal. And it's going to be a really, really dark pathway forward, which is going to be much more trust and reputation based than if you're running a legally registered company. So we just need to wait for it to happen, and then we see what's the next step we need to make.
So one of the big things that I hear.
Hold on, let me give you a mic.
I don't need a fucking microphone. Yeah, so one of the big things you hear from people is we don't need to worry about regulation or the government because we have encryption.
Oh, what the hell, no. Oh, that's silly. No. They're taking the encryption away too. Like the EU wants to introduce chat control over here, you know. You can't trust the government. Even if they would give us regulatory clarity on how to operate the privacy company, you still need to somehow figure out how to survive.
Yeah, so has there been any indication at all that this just ignore the government approach can even possibly be made to work?
It can, but it's not going to make anybody's lives easier. And as you can see, Paralelní Polis is also changing around. So, you know, there's multiple methods to solve this problem. But if you're able to develop a software that can somehow, you know, solve all this and have like CoinJoin and everything in it, then go ahead. Nobody's stopping you.
I don't think it's about developing a software that allows you to CoinJoin. I think it's about, is there any software that allows you to ignore the government and not worry?
No, nobody developed that thing yet. You can't download it anyway.
Then maybe people should be made aware of this, because a lot of people seem to think that there is such a thing.
You see, that's what should be the next, you know, my research thesis, like figure out how to ignore the government. You know, I mean, but you kind of can already. I mean, if you have Bitcoin and you can live outside of the system, you can already do that, kind of. You don't need to care about stupid politics. If non-KYC exists, people should use it. And then the government just disappears, kind of. At least if you live in the EU. The US is just impossible to live like that. Sorry, just use the microphone because I don't hear you because of the mask.
Yeah, they can wako you. Like you form a community and then they just send the agents and they just solve the problem.
I get what you're saying. Be careful with communities. Yeah, it's like the Fedimins. You know, there's lots of people with lots of different monies in it. And you should always think like an individual. That's why Bitcoin is always called like, or I would call it Bitcoin is not having a community. Because what we have is not a community, it is a cooperative of the individuals who are cooperating to reach a goal of freedom. And they have their own interest of what they want to achieve, right? And that's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be, you know, listening to a large group telling you what to do. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much for attending, and I thank you for your time for coming, and I really appreciate you. Thank you very much.